Welcome, it's Piatt Picks. If you watched Wage Rage earlier this week, this is where we're going to get in more detail about the fights we previewed with some single bets, of course. We've got a nice round robin, a really nice parlay, and a three-leg KO parlay that's just going to be really fun. If you pay attention to units or ratios, it'll be spelled out for you. But our parlay we would consider a lock is a 4-pick, $100 on it, 50 on the three-leg KO, and then the round robin is around 50. I think we'll explain that. How about that? Miguel, what fights are you excited about? Of course, we got the big one. We're going to let you preview the top billing this weekend for us.
Well, we've got Gervonta Davis taking on Ryan Garcia on Showtime. Obviously, Showtime Boxing stepping up into the forefront, as we pointed out on Wage Rage. We got a battle of young men in the peak of their, at the peak of their powers, or heading towards the peak of their powers, and not on the B side. And it's an exciting match. I think the buildup has been they put together for a long time. The buildup has been simmering. I think that's the right word, simmering. I think the guys don't like each other, but they've avoided those big, like, yeah, I'm going to kill you, and like actually being separated at weigh-ins. And, well, the weigh-ins haven't happened, but at press conferences and things,
That's right.
But the animosity is still there, and it makes it very interesting. And you're talking about real high skill guys, too.
And if we to believe them, they had a chat on the internet and said that they're going to go all or nothing on the purses. We'll see if that follows through. Same thing Jake Paul and Tommy Fury said, and that never happened either. But Sky Nicholson, we're going to give a little bit of feature to her. She's going to play a part in both our 4-leg parlay and our round robin, and a couple of others will too. But the method of victory changes for them. Sky Nicholson, we're going to stick on points and decision across the board. And normally I stay away from a method of victory on something I consider a lock. At 6-0, Sky Nicholson is a very technical, very good fighter, not a power fighter, fighting Linda Laura Leca, who's 15-6, only been knocked out once. And that knockout was by Daniela Romina Bermudez, 30-4 with 10 knockouts. And she's got a lot of knockouts towards the latter part of her career as well. And she's a bit of an unknown, but quite a good power puncher. So I don't see this being Sky Nicholson's first knockout against quite a durable fighter in Leca. So she's going to play part on our parlay and our round robin. Also on both, we have Gabriel Rosado fighting Malekyu Ziev. And we're going to go with him a couple different methods. We're going to have a fight to go the distance, no. And we're going to have the knockout by Molekulev for the round robin, a little riskier, pays a little bit better. This is a rematch. Molekulev looked to have it under control and had Rosado down in the first round and let him back into the fight, got knocked out in the third. This has been a few years ago at this point. And since then, it hasn't been good for Rosado. He's lost to Jaime Munguia, Shane Mosley, Ali Akhmadev, and now the rematch. Whereas Molekulev has been on more of an upward trajectory at 11-1 with 9 KOs. The one blemish I think he's going to avenge now. He's had 4 wins since then with 3 knockouts. So I'm looking for a knockout because they both do like to brawl. So with that said, let's get to the 4-leg parlay. This is what we would put, say, 1 unit on for us. That's $100. Sky Nicholson on points or decision. Zelfa Barrett money line. Vito Melnicki Jr. Let me explain that one in a second. And then Melkia versus Rosado, not to go the distance, as I mentioned. So the 3, the reason I put Melnicki Jr., he's a minus 950. It's a chalk pick. What it did is I went through and found enough math on the other 3 picks to make it about a double up on the money. So the 100 is going to win as 193 on that bet. And our round robin changes just slightly, honestly. Our round robin, we took the 3s and the 4s for $1 each, which would be $20 on the 3s and $15 on the 4s. We put $10 on the whole parlay. It's about a plus 627. Sky Nicholson on points or decision. Zelfa Barrett, but this time points or decision. Joe Cordina, points or decision. Melchizedek, KO. David Morrell, KO. And Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia, fight will not go the distance. You could consider putting Davis as the knockout on that one. It's not, it's a little bit better. But again, I like the odds on that little 6-leg round robin. We made some tougher picks, some juicy picks. It's plus 671 if you take the full one. So that's our round robin. The knockout one, really, I should tell you, is the one that we put 50 on. So in order of importance would have been the 4-leg at top. And now this 3-leg knockout. Miguel, this has got Elijah Garcia with the knockout, Bektamir Melkuvias for the knockout, and David Morrell for the knockout. Minus 270, minus 390, and minus 480. David Morrell being the most likely. We start with, you could say the hardest one, but minus 270. They turn out to a plus 101 just on these three. I think it's great value. Our $50 gets us back $104. Some of the singles, basically most everybody I've talked about, we've taken as a single. One thing I did differently, you mentioned the Davis Garcia. You know, we talked about this earlier. A lot of things could happen in this, but I think the most likely is Tank catching him probably around the 8th or something to that. You could look into. What I ended up doing was Davis by knockout, I could get at a minus 145. Davis by KO exact method. In other words, the ref doesn't call in and stop it. It's not a cut. It's not the corner. It's not a throw in the towel. It's you got counted out or you went out cold. And that's for a plus 185. And I really like that at plus 185. So we got that one. And what else do we take the singles on? Oh, Sandy Ryan. I got to mention this one. Sandy Ryan, I left off of the parlays. She's in a pretty interesting fight. And let me just look her up real quick. She's 5-1 and only 2 knockouts. So you can see why you're getting plus 360 for Sandy Ryan's knockout, because she's only got 2. Of course, it's women fighting with only 2-minute rounds. And early on, she's fighting 4-round fights, 6-round fights. Now, the past couple, she's into 10-round fights. So she's got a little bit more time to develop. And even better yet, Marie-Pierre Houle is her opponent, who's not a very good boxer, who's 8-0-1, has a decent record because she's the brawler. She likes to punch. She keeps her head down quite a bit and comes in swinging. And I think Sandy Ryan's good enough that she's going to pick her off with hooks and uppercuts. And so I see Sandy Ryan's 3rd knockout coming. That's kind of an underdog pick, if you will. I mean, the great odds at plus 360. So I think you want to sprinkle a little bit on that, manage your bankroll properly, but I think there's some great value in that one. So between the Tank Davis exact method knockout and Sandy Ryan knockout, I think there's some fun bets there to have. Joe Cordina plus 110 for points. Now, what's interesting there is that is still the most likely. It's just that the others are close enough. Maybe it's plus 300 for the knockout, and then count the other fella with his chances. So plus 110 is actually the best favored line, if you will, even though it's plus money. So I always like to get plus money on something that's actually considered the favorite. So Joe Cordina on points is plus 110, and that's a favorite. Threw a lot at you at once there. Miguel, chime in on any of those, my friend, please. And let's not forget the UFC.
Oh, fantastic stuff there. The main thing is, since we used to do this a few years ago, things have changed. There's a lot of options out there for where you can put your money on the internet and that sort of thing. It really has opened up, and I think ASP here has given us a glimpse of how, he spent his time, cooking this new show up, because there's a lot of data there to swallow. But the key phrase I took from that is manage your bankroll. There's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of different bets out there that a proper management of the bankroll, you can really do well for yourself. And let me give you an example. Obviously, and I think, for if you're into betting this way that I would go ahead and sign off on ASP's Gervonta Davis pick. But let's say you are a Ryan Garcia fan. You look at the effect of on all those parlays if you replace the Gervonta Davis fight with Ryan Garcia winning, as he is an underdog, and your parlay win goes, up a good deal by taking an underdog like that. And if you feel strongly about the underdog in that particular fight, that shakes it up for you. And what's interesting is it's going to be at the end of the night, so we'll probably be through the rest of it, and then you're waiting for that fight to do so. It becomes a whole different way of appreciating the fights and looking, and
Absolutely.
it separates the men from the boys, I think.
Absolutely. It's and it'd be great for a round robin, as you say, where you can lose one or two, especially when they're juicy like that, and still break even or make money. Depending, that's the beauty of those. You don't want to be too afraid on a round robin to change that method of victory instead of money line to knockout, especially in a fight like that. You think Garcia is going to win? Is it a liver shot? I mean, that now you can look at knockout and have a lot of fun with it. But again, manage that bankroll, do some fun things in round robins, be smart about, your parlays that you really want to win. You want to win them all, let's be real. But if you want to make some good money on a round robin, you can build it where you lose one or two and still make money. If they all hit, you make a lot of money, and we like that. Your singles can help cover the day. So everything on balance, watch your ratios or your units, have fun with it. And better yet, of everything, enjoy these fights. That's the key. These are going to be fun. Put a little something on it to have some fun with. Win or lose, just enjoy the fights. This is what boxing needs, and I'm really looking forward to this weekend. We're not going to end this show without UFC, though.
Let me go ahead. Just in terms of Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia, Gervonta in the 8th round is a good pick, and I think if you're going to see the fight go short, that's probably the way it's going to go. I think he's shorter, but I do think that his knockout ability, he's knocked out, taller people his whole career. He's okay with that. I looked at the Leo Santa Cruz fight for him. Santa Cruz and Garcia are not the same, but they both have some similar qualities, in terms of high skill too. And he was able to stay safe and break that down. For me, especially a liver shot on a much shorter opponent, I think, Ryan's probably going to have to, be lucky to get that. And, the other part of it is that, especially when you hear Gervonta Davis talk, he considers, Ryan to be a little vanilla, a little like, all you've got's that liver shot. So I think he's going to be able to avoid it. But if Garcia is going to win, I think fighting tall and long and keeping him at bay and hurting him, at least, making him pay for coming in and using his jab, could be the formula for him to go the distance and take it on the
and win on points.
Yeah.
And if you look at that win on points, my buddy Josh has been talking about it all week, by the way. And I'm glad you brought that up. Shout out to Josh. He was talking about Garcia on points because he and I really felt a lot the same way you did. Like, wow, what if it goes the distance? Because Tank's been outboxed by at least one judge score in the Leo Santa Cruz fight, in the Rolly Romero fight. He was either tied or losing on at least one judge in maybe 3 or 4 fights, something to that effect. Close enough that if a guy comes in that's, the way I said it, if a guy's 2 rounds better than Leo Santa Cruz or 2 rounds better than Rolly Romero, he's tied or beating Davis on the cards. He might still get knocked out, but he's probably going to be beating Davis on the card. So if a guy can then survive and not get knocked out, and maybe Ryan is that guy. And if he is, as Josh pointed out at the beginning of the week, that was a plus 900. This weekend, even, I believe it fell to 8, and then maybe it's around 7 now, even 650. So it's been losing because I think people are saying, well, if he's going to win, that's the way. And if they're going to pay me plus 900, and so people started taking it, and I think it lowered the odds over time. So I think there is some wisdom in that for the value. I would, again, bankroll management, be careful with that bet.
And
but
value is important. You gotta judge it because you do a parlay on 3 or 4 of those, four bets like that, and you go 3 for 4. Guess what? You had a fantastic
that's it.
day, but you took home no money. You know what I
Right.
mean? So that's the problem with getting too enthusiastic there. But at the same time, if
Yep.
you feel strongly about that Ryan Garcia, see what adding a plus 600 now for Garcia at the distance
Right.
does to those parlays. You make a
Right.
lot of money if you are head on with that.
That's right. And even as singles, and I really want to always stress that a lot of the time you want to look at taking the singles, not if it's a minus 1400, but a lot of the times you can cover some money back by looking at the singles. And when it's a positive money like that, yeah, you can put it in a round robin because it's a magic when it hits, but you can also just put $10 on a plus 800 and they give you 90 back. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Great, good deal. So, um, there's a lot of fun action and point out again to everybody, there's some fights that happen in England and then later on there's some fights in America. So the timing will be, earlier fights. There's also, as we mentioned, a Polish fight with Alan Babich, and I'm not sure if that's going to be broadcast for us or not, but some of these fights are early on. The Sky Nicholson and the Sandy Ryan fight are going to be earlier, I believe, and then we'll get into Rosado and Garcia in the later fights, in the big fight. Let's be real. So speaking of big fights,
All right. So now you want to talk about the UFC and the big boys, and I don't blame you. I think this is for fight fans. This is a weekend that hopefully you've got dueling TV remote controls and stuff, kind of thing, and you're going to be watching both because I think they're both worth watching. We're talking about Curtis Blaydes and Sergey Pavlovich in the UFC heavyweight division. 17-3 for Blaydes, 17-1 for Pavlovich. We rarely get a fight like this in the heavyweight division in the UFC. In that both guys are still pretty much trending up. You know what I mean? And they do a lot of recycling, guys. I don't, want to toss out a lot of names, but they do recycle a lot of guys. Andrei Arlovsky's still fighting. That sort of stuff. Frank Mir had long run, after his prime and stuff like that. So they rely on big names that have some tread in the heavyweight division. This is not one of those fights. So that's what makes it exciting.
absolutely.
The other thing that makes it exciting is that the underdog in this one does have a lot of heat in terms of in-ring action. 5 first-round stoppages in his last 5 fights. So he looks like a train coming forward. And Blaydes, 7-1 in his last 8 fights. Is only 3 career losses, one of them to Derek Lewis, and then the other 2 to Francis Ngannou, who's a champion there and walked away. But 7-1, this guy's no slouch either. You can see why people are going for him. And then when you take into account, a little patriotism and stuff, how can you not root for Curtis Blaydes on this one when he's facing off against a Russian? But man, that Russian could be one of those Russians. I think the Russians tend to, they all are scary until you see some of them, and then only some of them are scary. And I think we're looking at one of those scary ones.
Update on the odds, by the way. When you brought this to me a few weeks ago, you had mentioned that it had started even, that it had gone up to 146. I bet it at about 136 when we taped Monday. It's now back up to 140 for Sergey Pavlovich. So there's still action to be made as we tape here on Thursday. As you're watching this Friday, even Saturday morning, continue to check Sergey Pavlovich, currently at 140, Curtis Blaydes at minus 180. A little deeper dive real quick into the method of victory tells you that the books think it's going to be a knockout. Curtis Blaydes by knockout is minus 110, where Pavlovich for knockout is plus 185. Beyond that, the odds skyrocket. Blaydes by submission, 900. Blaydes on points, plus 1,000. Pavlovich on points, plus 1,600 and plus 2,600 for submission. So you can see here that while the overall odds are pretty close, when you get into method of victory, somebody's getting knocked out according to the money. and to the bookmakers. So this is going to be an exciting fight, as Miguel has already told you, and that's backed up by the math and the books and every way you can see it. So if you're going to go with Sergey with that knowledge, he's plus 140 money line, but at the plus 185 for knockout being the most likely, maybe you go for a little extra juice there. Take a look at that. Take a look
Yeah.
at him by knockout.
And some of the sports books, for the people out there that really want to get esoteric, I think some of the sports books will allow you to bet that this will be a first round KO,
Absolutely.
and not pick the winner. Just that the fight will, one way or another, it's ending in the first round in a KO. You may find that available on some of the books that take a
We've
little
got
twist.
it at minus 125. Sorry to interject. We've got it at minus 125. I'm currently using FanDuel. Round one ends in round one, minus 125. Round two's plus 340, then plus 800 and plus 1200. Fifth round is locked for some reason. So, as you're pointing out, again, guys, listen to Miguel when it comes to UFC. Please listen to what I'm telling you. The man knows what he's talking about. It is first round, very likely, minus 125. So there's value in that because it doesn't matter which guy wins at that point. You can lock in
Right.
that 125 and take either guy. So love it, Miguel. This is the math I love talking about and love bringing to folks. And then we get to sit back and watch a heck of a fight that promised us to be full of fireworks, explosive, and somebody might get carried out. Look out.
Yeah, we'll see. Blaydes is going to probably have to weather a storm, and that's where the Pavlovich. Pavlovich has had 5 first round finishes in his last 5 fights. As they've lifted his level of competition, he has gotten people out of there in impressive fashion. Some of the guys that includes in there, on that list, the Australian guy Paitt that was considered a slugger and a guy that nobody was going to take out like that, gone in the first round. Derek Lewis.
He's a shoey guy, right? Isn't that guy the shoe? He drinks the shoeys,
exactly,
the beer out of the shoe. Okay, yeah,
exactly. So, and Derek Lewis, maybe Derek's got a little bit of mileage by the time he ran into Pavlovich, but taking Derek Lewis out again in less than a minute, taking another Russian out in less than 4 minutes. Maurice Green, they lifted his level of competition. Tai Tuivasa was recently, one of the top 3 to 5 heavyweights that they had on the roster, had a head of steam going. Take him out in a minute is a calling card, is a notice sender. And that's what I think Pavlovich has done. Now, Blaydes also did his last fight short. But that one ended in a knee injury with Tom Aspinall, the Brit, getting hurt. He didn't really fight in that one, didn't get really hurt, and that's since July. So he's been waiting there for a little bit. I think a little bit of that works against Curtis, and then Curtis also is a guy that after that doesn't, he's going to have to weather a storm, I think, and that's going to be the big key. If they come out for round 2, and if you're into live betting, you may want to start checking up on Curtis stopping it in the second or third round because you may be looking at a very gassed Pavlovich. But if he does what he did his last 5 fights, we're not even going to see round 2.
That's right. I'm looking forward to it. Great weekend overall. Combat sports, both. Please subscribe to the channel. Relaunch of the show, new show, however you want to look at it. Subscribe there. Sharps app I want to mention. Piatt, Piatt 186 is the referral code there, helping with the podcast, with the YouTube channel. We appreciate them. We appreciate y'all for listening. Sign up there. It helps us out as well. Keep their sponsorship going. Miguel, what else we got? I think we're ready for fighting.
Yeah, we're just about ready. I want to point out, since we talked a little bit about parlays and putting bets together, we talked about Jared Gordon and Bobby Green.
That's right.
Jared, if he's still an underdog, you could do that. A friend of mine pointed out that Muhammad Usman is on the card. And
you mentioned this. Please, get into this a little bit because, wow. I think you're onto something there because, again, the name recognition with Blaydes, just to preface it, we think is why the money came in on him, and Pavlovich has value now. And we think the same is happening here. But even in a worse way, please explain to the listeners what we're talking about.
I'm just talking about buzz. I haven't really done a full analysis on Muhammad Usman, but we obviously know his brother held the welterweight title for a long time. At one point, Dana was tossing his name around up there with, the greatest welterweights of all time. So Kamaru Usman is the name that's on everybody's mind, and this is his brother. And, you could carve your own niche, or you could be Kamaru Usman's brother for the rest of your life. And the buzz around Muhammad is that he's just not going to be able to rise to the same level of legacy. That is just not
That's right.
there for him. That the UFC may be carrying him a little bit. Maybe because the brother was champion, that's when his contract got developed, and you're keeping everybody happy. I'm not saying that it's complete nepotism. I'm not saying he doesn't belong there, but I'm saying people expecting him to evolve like his brother. You may find value in the opponent there.
And so on that one, Muhammad Usman is currently minus 104. Even though he's a negative number, he's not technically the favorite. Junior Tafa is at minus 120. So, but you can maybe still find value in Tafa if you think Usman is getting the benefit of name recognition and is overrated at that minus 104. So,
you mentioned Tui Tuivasa when we talked about the heavyweights being the shoe guy, and
yeah,
the Australian guys that come with, or New Zealand, that Micronesian guys that come with a head of steam and a little bit of a bad attitude and really do know how to fight. And Usman's opponent Tafa falls right into that category. You know what I mean?
that's right. And to circle back around to Jared Gordon, because you also have a good point there. He's currently plus 200 even. Bobby Green minus 265. And I think that number has gone, when we looked at it earlier, I believe he was only about a 170 or something. So that plus 200 on Gordon seems to be maybe some good value to look into as well. So,
Green comes in at the top of his game. We've already seen him perform at a high level. He's been one of the guys that has given other people great fights. But he also has 14 losses. And Gordon has more of like a case of karma, in my opinion, which is something you don't want to rely on too much in this game. You know what I mean? But every once in a while, you get a guy like Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon also has an absolutely fascinating backstory that, saw him living on the streets of New York, homeless and a heroin addict before making it back to UFC. Or making it to UFC, because he fought on heroin in a lower level show because he was an addict and he had to overcome all that. And a lot of people don't know his backstory. I think he's to rise to that level, he's overcome a lot, and he was wronged in his last fight. He fought Paddy Pimblett. Most of the internet considers that Paddy Pimblett lost that fight, and at the very least, the effect is that Paddy Pimblett has been quiet ever since then. Maybe we definitely owe Jared Gordon. He took the loss. He took the loss like a man too. I think he let people know, man, that was wrong, but he didn't turn in a complainer's performance either. He
right.
took it like a man. Like I said, I think that gives him some karma points. In my book, and it also had the effect that we haven't really heard much from Paddy Pimblett since then. So maybe it was a good thing that
Right.
that it happened that way. And again, like I said, you might a straight analysis might rate Bobby Green a little bit ahead of the curve here, and maybe that's why rightfully he's the favorite. But I'm just saying that Jared Gordon's had a couple of things that he's taken adversity and turned it into the right thing, and
That's
in
right.
his career and stuff. And if he can somehow do it, this is a karma pick. And we're also both from
Yeah.
New York too, so
Right.
he
Right.
pulls a little bit on my heartstrings. But like I said, you don't want to rely too much on the gut. But I'm doing it on this one. I'm picking Jared Gordon.
And because again he's risen to that plus 200, instead he was a little less than that early in the week.
Yeah,
There may be some value there. A fun bet. Again, something similar to say, yeah, throw a little something on it, or make a small, I believe earlier off air you mentioned a small round robin. I think that, or a small parlay, not a round robin, excuse me. But let's mention that real quick. I think it included
Yeah,
Jordan and Pavlovich.
yeah. If the situation to me is, it depends on the bankroll. You know, if you had a couple of good weeks in a row and you have an extra $50 in a week like this, you've got Ryan Garcia, who's an underdog, but Ryan Garcia is an underdog who's got some people who think you're crazy. You know,
Right,
and
right.
so if you're one of those people and you're firm on that camp, you got to go with Ryan Garcia.
Garcia,
We talked about Blaydes and Pavlovich. If you're on the Pavlovich
Pavlovich,
bandwagon, that's another underdog right now. Now you've got two of those together, and now you're hoping Lady Luck
Jared.
is on your side, right? Then we
And
got Jared
Jared is
Gordon.
now at 200. So this number that you're about to tell us may have gone up because I think Jared's odds have gone up. But those three came somewhere in the neighborhood of a $50 bet. Say it again, Miguel.
Well, I did. I checked actually with Jared Gordon and Tafa. So Muhammad
Okay.
Usman. So it was a four-part parlay, but a $50 bet. If they all run the table, you're at $2,000 in victory. And you know
Right.
that could bankroll you for a little bit of weeks with keeping a wife off your back. You know, so
And I'll point out that if you have the four with three, I wouldn't do it. But if you've got the four, then you can look at a round robin where you can pick the twos and the threes off of a four pick with quite a bit of value there. Because um, if only two out of four hit, but they're all close to like a plus 200, you're still going to make a little bit of money, not a lot, but maybe 20 or 30% normally. And if three of them hit, you're going to make good money. So you don't have to have all four of them hit at that point. And if they do all hit, then you're right back to, to the biggest of money, of course. Um, but something where you have plus odds on four guys, somewhere near plus 150 to plus 250, that's a great time to look at a round robin, in my opinion. I wouldn't take all of them, take just the twos and the threes, maybe. But it's always interesting to look at because the return on those, it gives you that live to fight another day mentality.
yeah,
I'm always looking to build. That's why I mentioned one bet is 100, then 50, then 25, and then some singles for maybe 10 to 20 or whatnot each. Looking at the ratios so that we hit a couple of our most likely ones. The rest is bonus. We've made our money back already, and now let's see what happens. Does Sandy Ryan get this knockout to make it a great night? Things like that. So I always build to keep some bankroll. I don't want to keep giving deposits to the bookies. So
and
it's all
that's the beauty of it too, is that once you get into the nitty gritty and the trenches like we're doing here, now it's about style too. Now it's about style too. Like my little karma pick, there's some viewers that are going to say he's nuts. You know what I mean? But that's my pick. And
yep.
you get a little bit of opportunity to do that. You get a little bit of opportunity to how often you want to do that, how much you want to do it, and if you're bankrolling up a little bit, hey, you put $50 on that, 2,000 comes in, and now you're plus, for a couple months or whatever, whatever how much money you want to spend on there, or maybe actually take the wife out for that dinner you promised her for the last couple of years.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Oh man, what a good show. Again, we're just relaunching the show. This is the first Piatt picks. We did a Wage Rage to sort of preview things. Wage Rage was made up when we did Cage Rage podcast. I joined in 2016, stayed with it for several years, and we're glad to sort of relaunch, rebrand, and here we are with Wage Rage presents Piatt picks. And we're just getting started, folks, but we're trying to give you the insight into why and what we're doing there a little bit. And hope you can tail us and make some money and enjoy these fights. Because what a great thing. I mean, this is so good for boxing and UFC at the same time. And so I'm really looking forward to it. Got the crew coming over. Instantly people are what are we barbecuing and everything. So it's let's get it. Let's go. Let's have some fun.
That's for sure. And if you could do us a favor, hit like and share, subscribe, comment, do all those types of things. Um, and I'll tell you, you could be on the lookout here on the Piatt Picks channel. There's going to be a little bit of a highlight reel coming, from that first run that we did. And I think you're going to want to see the type of success that Anthony was doing there, because some of those picks, in retrospect back now, He was pulling rabbits out of a hat even back then. So hopefully, we'll be able to. Hopefully, we'll have a good weekend this weekend. You know, what would be worse than not, we don't hit one on opening weekend, but I think we'll be all
I have
right.
faith. We're gonna be all right. We have faith. We have faith.